Star Wars Jedi Survivor was my most eagerly awaited title of 2023, but in the recent environment of bad PC ports, I was feeling a bit uneasy, and pre-release rumours didn't do much to help. In this video, I'll be putting this sequel to Fallen Order through its paces on my personal rig at a few different resolutions and quality settings to see what the state of play is here on opening weekend. My test setup for this video is a Ryzen 7 5700X clocked to 4.6 GHz, 32GB of dual-rank DDR4 3600 CL15, and a GB RTX 3070 OC using the Game Ready driver set 531.68. In case you're worried about spoilers, don't be. The benchmark is just a short 90-second run from one meditation point to another, with no major story or character information. It's an open world section with a few NPCs towards the end, and based on my experience so far, it seems fairly representative of gameplay, though cutscenes do frequently get more demanding than this. Starting off gently at 1080p without ray tracing, it's possible to run at epic settings at a 60+ average, though there are plenty of frame time spikes leading to 1% scores in the 40s. The GPU is rarely maxed out, and usage drops into the 80s and even the high 70s at times, so even now we're seeing the beginnings of a CPU limit. Dropping image quality to high lifts averages by almost 10%, but has very little effect on the lows. GPU usage starts in the 80s and dips as low as the 60s by the end of the run. At 1080 medium, there are moments where the GPU can just have a snooze, as it lingers in the 60s and even dropped below 50. Average FPS jumps to 85, a very welcome 16% increase over high, and this time 1% and 0.1% are actually better too. But there's definitely something wrong here, and I can't help but think how much better things would be if the GPU were being properly fed with frames. Enabling RT in Jedi Survivor is a big ask for the RTX 3070, even at 1080p. You can see that on loading the save, it takes a few extra seconds for ground textures to load in. Epic settings has dropped from 67 FPS without RT to 49 FPS with it enabled, about a 25% loss in average frames. The drop is even worse for the lows, with 1% losing about 33% and 0.1s losing almost 50%. Reducing to the high preset actually regains a lot of the lost performance, pushing averages back up to 63, but the overall experience is still far from smooth, and 1% lows are only a small improvement over Epic. At medium, the scores are not too far from the non-RT Epic run, hitting almost 70 FPS, though lows are still disappointing. GPU usage is higher across the board with RT enabled by about 10 to 15% on average, but at lower settings it's still not being maxed out. Technically, I think most people would categorise the RTX 3070 as a 1440p card, but those 1080p results are not encouraging. The non-RT run once more starts at epic, and the average of 50 FPS is actually pretty playable. This average isn't likely to be improved either, as the GPU is mostly being maxed out, but frame pacing is still painfully uneven. Dropping quality to high would be helpful for those looking for 60 FPS, with averages hitting 63 and lows a good 10 to 20% higher than Epic, but the CPU bottleneck rears its ugly head again. GPU usage occasionally maxes out, but more often lingers in the 80s. At medium, FPS still manages to increase to 79, but the GPU's taking another nap, dropping into the 60s. With RT on, the GPU is back to work again. At Epic, it doesn't go much below 90% and frequently maxes out, but you might still expect a more consistent workload than this. The frame rate is now really going to affect gameplay, averaging just 36.5 and with 1% as low as 10 FPS. And the game still takes a few seconds on loading to fully display textures. Dropping to high is of some help with the frame rate, increasing average FPS by about 20% and minimums by over 30%, though 17 FPS is still an atrociously low number. Medium is actually fairly playable, though frame times are still pretty spiky. Some might wonder why anyone would put themselves through this drop in performance by enabling RT at just medium quality, to which I'd say that the game's ray tracing includes accurate shadows and self-shadowing, without which Cal's hair can get a bit thermonuclear? Again, high and medium presets both suffer from a drop-off in GPU utilisation as far as the 60s at medium. Thankfully, this is just weekend 1, and EA have promised patches to be released in the coming weeks, so I may revisit this one in the near future. If you're interested in how the RTX 3070 is handling other recent titles, check out my full 2023 review linked on screen. Thanks for watching, kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.